What's up, everybody? Welcome to what is going to be the first episode of Board Games Are For Everybody. First things first, this is the obligatory "These Are My Favorite Games" video. Everyone does it. I just figured I would do it out of the gate. Something that'll probably change over time, but for the time being, this is where it sits. Some things I want to go over while this is our first video, kind of get people into the speed of things. I do not live in a studio. I do not have a lot of space, so there's probably going to be some background noise. I'm going to try and mitigate it as much as I can, but there's probably going to be some background noise that we're going to have to deal with. I do have pets. There could be some meowing in the background. Just think of it as a cute little thing that happens and not so much a distraction. I'm going to try not to say or but or too much. I know it's unpleasant to the ears. It's a thought process thing that I just did. I don't always think about it when I'm doing it. I'm going to do my best to not do it so much. But the obvious thing that's going to happen if I don't do that is that there's just going to be a lot of pauses. I'm going to try and not do that so much too. But without wasting too much time, we're just going to kind of get into this. Because this is a new channel, we are still limited to 15 minutes, I'm pretty sure. So we're going to try and run through this as quick as possible. All of these games are ones I'm probably going to talk about in the future. They are all games that I enjoy immensely, so I will definitely talk about them when I get a chance to. These are not in any particular order, so we're just going to get into it. The first game we're going to talk about, I believe, is the most recent game that I have in this pile from 2018. It is Sagrada. Now, Sagrada is a game that we picked up because we really like the aesthetics of it. I think it's one that we saw online and thought it was a game that we would really enjoy and we wanted to try it out. Basically, the premise of the game is that you are building these stained glass mirrors. It's a dice drawing game. You draw your dice, you create the mirrors based on the numbers that are on the dice, based on the colors of the dice. It is a game that we have been playing wrong for the last 4 years and recently discovered that we had skipped over a rule that made the game a little more challenging. So we're probably just going to continue to play the game wrong and house rule it to make the game a little more forgiving. But Sagrada is definitely a game that we'll talk about in the future. It's a really fun game. It's a very good looking game. And I think it's a fun time. But yeah, Sagrada is the first game that we're going to talk about here. So the next one we got here, if I can find it, here we go. This is a game I played growing up a lot. I have not played this game in a really long time, usually because I can't find people to play it with me. And that is Risk 2210. This is my favorite version of Risk. I used to play a lot of Risk growing up, mostly on the computer against AI because I didn't have people to sit down and play with. But Risk 2210 has always been my favorite version of Risk. It has the mech theme. I like the mech futuristic aesthetic to everything. I think that's really fun. The greatest part about this game, I believe it shows it on the back, is that you can build space stations and you can colonize the moon. You can go take over the moon. It's great. The other really good thing about this game is that there is a time limit on it. You basically have a certain amount of turns to get as many points as you can, which makes playing a game of Risk a lot easier. One of the biggest hurdles of Risk is that it is a long game if you're playing with people who are really experienced. But this one, you're just trying to get different challenges and stuff done during your turn. You're still trying to take over other territories and stuff that your opponents control, but there's other stuff that you can do to try and accumulate more points so that once the time limit's over, you have the most points. It's a really fun game. It's definitely my favorite version of Risk. It is one we will take a look at if I ever find people to play with. This version has been so unplayed that I don't even have stuff out of the wrapper and stuff is unpunched. I have had this game for maybe 4 or 5 years now, and I've never played it. It's a game I played a lot growing up. It is a game I would love to play more. I just need to find some people to play it with me. Next game we're going to talk about, one of my favorite games of all time, as all of these are, obviously. These are all my favorite games, but this one specifically is a game that I really enjoy, and that is Talisman. This is 4th edition. It is the most recent edition that's come out. I think the first time I played Talisman, probably, I don't know, years ago. I think this was a game that came out back in the 80s. It's a really old game. It's a game that a lot of people like to say is pretty basic. Basically just a roll and move. You're not doing much, but I like to dispute that. I don't think this is the type of game that you need to go into thinking you're going to strategize your way out of everything, that so long as you have a better strategy than your opponent, you're better off. This is a game you need to go into knowing that it's very random, and anything can happen at any time. But Talisman, really fun game. Definitely one that we're going to talk about at some point. It's a very big game, takes a lot of table space, and it has expansions that take up even more table space. Very big game, very fun game. I love the exploration of the board. I love the randomness. Even though it feels punishing, it's a fun time. This is a game that I want to try and find some sort of solo version for, so that we can do a playthrough of it for the channel. But that's Talisman. Really fun game. Really like it. Next game we're going to talk about here. This is a game that a lot of people like to look down on. It's a kid's game, very childish game. This is a game that I have considered to be my favorite game of all time for a very long time, and that is Candyland. I really like Candyland. I don't go into this game thinking I'm going to beat my opponents every time. I'm going to just become this strategy-driven super gamer, find some way to outwit all my opponents. No, Candyland is you draw the cards, you move. That's all it is. But I really like Candyland. I have a lot of really good memories actually playing the PC version of Candyland from the cereal boxes, and I think that is probably part of what contributes to me liking Candyland so much. But it's obviously it's a kid's game. There's no getting around that. It is not a complex game. It is not a very thought-provoking game, but I really like Candyland. This is a game that I want to talk about, but it's probably going to take a while. I am currently working on getting every release of Candyland. It is one of my board game goals. I want to own all the Candylands. Think of that what you will, but it is something that I want to do. And we have a handful, but I don't think I really want to talk about the series until we get at least a few more Candylands. But with that, we are coming up on our next game, which is Arena Roma 2. This is a game we got on sale. I think it was a clearance item, maybe like $10, $12 from a board game store that we go to. This is a really fun one. It's one that I don't play too often. Usually I have a hard time finding people who enjoy playing it. Basically what it is, it's a card game and a dice game. You play your cards, either your character cards or your building cards. You roll your dice and you use the dice that you roll in order to activate the cards. This is one that we'll take a look at for sure. It's a game I really enjoy. It can be combined with the original Roma game, which I've actually never played. This was the first one I played, but apparently you can combine the decks to make the deck bigger. Arena Roma 2. That is a game that I really like. So next one we got here, another modern one that we found after, sorry about that, trying to prevent more noise than was about to happen. One that we got kind of when we started collecting games, modern games, and that is Onitama. Something you probably saw while I was holding it back here briefly is Onitama. Onitama is a really fun game. It's basically like chess, but with a bit more limited movement. You have different movement cards where you rotate them out between you and your opponent, and there's a neutral card. So each player has the same moves, and you can always visualize your moves. It's a really interesting take on the chess kind of formula. Definitely one that we'll talk about. We do have one of the expansions as well. it's one that we'll take a look at. Onitama, really fun game. I really enjoy it. It's a fun time. So we got a couple more here. This next one that we got is, I think this was the first game that we got when we started collecting modern games, and that is Santorini. Santorini is a building construction kind of game. Basically, the goal of the game is to build your towers, and you want to be the first person to get to the top of the third tier. I think the god cards can be a little unbalanced if you get one that's too good against your opponent, but there can be some really balanced battles with cards that work really well together. But yeah, Santorini, really fun game. I love the 3D aspect. I'm a big fan of 3D parts in board games. I like having stuff that you can hold in your hand. I like doing the building and stuff. I think that's a really cool aspect for a lot of board games. But yeah, Santorini looks great. Really, really good looking game once everything is all set up. Once you have all these buildings built, it has a very good presence on your play table. I think it's a really cool Santorini, really good game. Definitely one we'll talk about as time goes on. So we got one more game here. Whoa, if I can reach it. Here we go. Okay, this game is a game I played a lot growing up. It is a game that I enjoy quite a bit, and that is Othello. Now, Othello is known by many names. You've got Reversi, you've got Renegade, you've got Othello. There's probably more that I don't know of, but those are the ones that I know. Othello, the first time I played this game probably wasn't even the board game version. I think the first time I played this was the video game version on the Nintendo Entertainment System when I was like 3 or 4 years old, probably. First time I played Othello. May honestly be the first board game I ever played. If I'm being honest, I don't remember a whole lot of stuff I played back then. But yeah, Othello, really fun game, strategy game, kind of in the same vein as Go, but not at all like Go. I'm just saying you have that tile aspect to it, that token aspect to it, but you are more trying to capture your opponents by, instead of surrounding them on all four sides like on Go, you're trying to surround them on the ends. And if you have your color on both ends of an opponent's piece, you capture all those pieces. But Othello is definitely a game that I enjoy quite a bit. It's a very good strategy game. It's a game that I overthink on quite a bit. But yeah, as the slogan says on the side, a minute to learn, a lifetime to master. There are a lot of interesting mechanics to Othello to learn, for sure. That's absolutely true. But yeah, that's kind of it for the stack of stuff I picked out. A lot of my favorite games. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video, and leave what your favorite games are down in the comments. I'd love to hear what your favorite games are. Stuff you enjoy playing, stuff you enjoyed playing growing up, stuff you still enjoy playing. And hopefully I will see you all next time for the next video. But until then, just remember, guys, that board games are for everybody, and I'll see you all then.